Super Bowl is over. The Texans have a new offensive coordinator in Nick Calley, and we got to hear from him today for the first time. I got excited about something. Look, I'm jaded. I'm cynical. I've seen a whole bunch of new coach press conferences in my life, and every time I find a reason to get excited about. But some very poignant ones that I know a lot of you noticed as well. So I took 8 of the answers that D'Amico and Nick Calley gave today that I found most intriguing. There's a lot of good stuff in there. It was a long press conference, so you can go check it out on the Texans YouTube channel. First question I've got here is when John McClain asked about the very, very pertinent issue, problem, headache, nightmare of the pass protection issues.
Yeah, I think it all starts up front, obviously, and it's really all 11. I mean, we all got to be in sync, and I think protection starts, obviously, with communication, with trust and communication, cohesiveness up front, and really having clear, rules in the protection system. So we're gonna, we'll be going through that process. Obviously, I got a, history with Cole, dating back to my time in New England when he was our offensive line coach and I coached the tight end. So I have a really good working relationship and a level of trust with Cole. He's a very good football coach, and I'm excited to go through this process with him.
Okay, so the relationship with Cole Popovich, the new offensive line coach, I know that was a big question a lot of us have had is, all right, well, Cole Popovich was the assistant offensive line coach last year, and the offensive line wasn't doing so hot. I didn't include D'Amico's answer in that, but D'Amico pointed to a lot of things that have already been reported, that the players on the team seem to really like him. Personally, I do, I've seen this before. I've seen assistant position coaches who could do a better job than the assistant coach, but their hands are kind of tied in what they can do, especially if going back to the communication and trust part of things. I think Bobby Slowick, at the very root of it all, was a pass game guy. He was a passing game coordinator. He'd never been a position coach. I think that Calley, the way he struck me today, one of the resoundingly recurrent themes was how it all starts off up front. I mean, this is a guy who knows and cares about blocking. He was a tight ends coach forever, and a team that did it really well with their tight ends in New England. And that part I'm optimistic about, just in terms of just worldview. Now, you still got to be able to execute it on the field, obviously. But in terms of worldview, he is very much all about starting right at the ball and working your way out. So that was cool to see. And the fact that he has a relationship with Cole Popovich, I'm guessing that he had some input into, I can't remember the timing of it all, but I'm guessing that he put in a strong word of confidence for Cole Popovich. So hopefully philosophically and in terms of technique and scheme, those guys don't end up having the same communication issues that it was obvious that people weren't on the same page. I mean, we had times, remember, in the darkest days of the pass protection issues this year, where the offensive tackle and the running back would both be blocking an interior defender, while the actual edge rusher went completely free. That's communication and trust issues right there. So I don't want to see him. Can't have him. Chrissy Rinkin asked him how eager he was to work with CJ. Thanks to BetUS for sponsoring the video, by the way. And how you put your stamp on the offense.
Really looking forward to working, obviously, with CJ. Tremendous talent, competitor. You talk about an ultimate competitor, tough, instinctive, can make plays. So I'm very excited. And as a first-time coordinator, to answer your second part of the question, really excited to get an opportunity to evolve this scheme and put, it's not going to be my spin, it's going to be what's best for our players. And it's always going to be what's best for our players. No, we're not pounding a square peg into a round hole. It's going to be based on the strengths of our quarterback, the players, and the guys on this team. So that's what it will always be, designed around.
Yeah, and the strengths of your players, what are they good at? I in my mind, I keep going back to the offensive line. We did see towards the end of the year and then in the playoffs, the Texans offensive line have some success on inside zones and gap scheme type stuff where they were getting good movement. They were getting good push in a way that I didn't necessarily think they were capable of in the run game. And leaning into those things instead of taking a year and a half to figure it out. Yes, I am all for that. We're going to hear an old buzzword of Bill O'Brien at one point that comes from New England, but it's okay. Don't fear the buzzword. It comes from a good place. Also, hey, by the way, at BetUS right now, they have a casino. So if you're into slots, if you like live dealers, generous promotions and tournaments, you can make every play even more rewarding. Sign up now and experience the difference. You can get your sign-up bonus, 200% sign-up bonus, up to $5,000, and a 250% crypto signing bonus up to $5,000. It's not as big as Bregman's signing bonus, but it's a good bonus. It's a good bonus for the likes of us. Aaron Wilson asked about his coaching style and his influences, most notably, obviously, Sean McVay and Bill Belichick?
Starting off, I mean, everything I'm going to, preach and we're going to preach here is going to be rooted in fundamentals. I think you look at every good play, it has good fundamentals. So we're going to start from the ground up, building fundamentals and getting repetitions and time on task with that. The things that I can take, had the opportunity to obviously come most recently with Sean in LA, have a tremendous amount of respect for him, learned a ton of football, from him, as well as obviously Coach Belichick with my time in New England. Invaluable experiences for me, and they're both rooted very similarly. Maybe different personalities and different ways of doing things at times, but it's fundamentals. It's not beating yourself. It's playing clean. It's controlling the line of scrimmage. That's the run game. That's pass protections, etc. And it's being a cohesive unit that takes care of the football. So, those are going to be the things that transcend any kind of scheme, any specific play. We're going to be fundamentally based and rooted in that.
Okay, so when we talk about McVay, we'll do some 6 degrees of separation here and how all these things play out over time. Sean McVay, the year that they lost to the Patriots in the Super Bowl, previously that season, Vic Fangio had given him fits and basically just had a lot of Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator, I believe of the Bears at the time, well, coach of the Bears, gave him fits. And no, he was defensive coordinator of the Bears. Anyway, gave him fits, whether it was the Broncos, whoever it was. And Belichick basically learned a lot from that. At that same time, New England and the way they operate and Nick Calley's experience over there, I think there's been an intrigue by Sean McVay in the way the Patriots operate both offensively and defensively. McVay goes out and gets a quarterback who could handle more responsibility mentally, could be more in charge and command of a diverse offense. They changed their run game up over time, moved away from the old Kyle Shanahan elements. And a lot of, I think, what people were getting frustrated with Bobby Slowick, whether it's CJ's command at the line of scrimmage or just whether it's the predictability, anything sticking with the outside zone when it wasn't working and it didn't look like they could figure it out. Calley said a lot of stuff today that was basically in stark contrast to a lot of the complaints that people had about Bobby Slowick. And I don't think he was trying to take a shot at Slowick or anything, but D'Amico, without calling out Bobby Slowick, talked a lot about adaptability and changing to the strengths of your players. And I think it's pretty obvious that he didn't think that Slowick did a good job with that. If they thought it was completely just the personnel on the offensive line, then Bobby Slowick would still have a job. So that's where we're hoping there's going to be a fix there. I believe it was Kim Davis that asked D'Amico what he was looking for in this search.
I went in with an open mindset, Kim, and I learned a lot from a lot of sharp coaches. I learned a lot, just seeing how guys put things together, how guys adjusted and adapted to what they were from their schemes, what they were able to do. So I went in with an open mind, but also went in with the idea of the right person who can lead us, right, in the right direction, get everybody going in the same direction, can help our quarterback the most, help us with where we had our issues, of course, with our protection. We know we can clean that up. Just all a well-rounded football coach, right? And that's Nick. Nick has coached multiple positions. He's coaching on the defensive side. He understands how to attack schemes. He understands how to put guys in the right position. Right? Understand how to adjust it to make sure it's favored to our players and making sure they are able to accentuate their strengths. And that's what it was about for me.
Yeah, it was one of you guys that pointed out to me something like blatantly obvious that I hated myself for not realizing. It was an excellent point, was that Slowick had never he'd never been a position coach before. And he worked with the quarterbacks in San Francisco. But there is something about being on the ground, doing the nuts and bolts work as a tight ends coach with Nick Calley, being involved in both the run blocking and the pass blocking, but as well as the passing game, that I think probably really appealed to D'Amico. Because at the end of the day, like in football, we're all blue collar dudes. You got a job to do, and you can scheme everything up perfectly, and it can be strategically and schematically brilliant. But you got to coach the fundamentals. I was happy to hear Nick Calley use the word fundamentals several times today, because I think if there's one thing with the offensive line over the last couple of years, if the fundamentals aren't drilled, they fade. Like, that's something in pro sport. That's something you tell kids at camps all the time. When you're a pro athlete, and they never believe you. But it's like, no, we work on really, really boring stuff. The really boring stuff constantly because you have to, because it fades. You got to keep sharpening that blade all the time. And I think that Calley, it sounds like, gets that more. And with D'Amico, the other word that he used a lot was leadership. And every candidate's going to tell you he's a great leader. That's the stuff you get from word of mouth. That's what you get from listening to other people and asking, okay, what kind of a leader is this guy? And D'Amico used the word leadership quite a few times. It was also cool, too, by the way, that D'Amico, I'm glad he had that experience of interviewing a bunch of guys because you get valuable education and intel, but also, like, the education's a really good part. You see the way different guys operate. When a guy comes in to interview, and they really want that job, they're going to tell you a lot of stuff that they might not tell the Fox broadcasting crew about the way they operate. They're going to put it all out there. So for one, you see a different perspective of different people. And then two, you can kind of squirrel it away, and maybe you see that guy a few years down the line. Maybe it helps you a little bit. All those little nuggets matter. Next question. I think this was from Landry. Landry got a couple of really good answers out of these guys. Do you have an idea of what type of scheme you want to run?
Yeah, you got it. Well, with the offensive line, the quarterback, obviously the halfback, you got to be able to see the game through the same set of eyes, and you got to be going in the same direction, and you got to be tied together. And it starts with communication, and it starts with protection.
Real quick, sorry. This question was, what will you, and I think this was Greg Bailey, what will you lean on to get the most out of the quarterback? It'll make more sense. Let me back it up a little bit. So what will you lean on to get the most out of the quarterback?
Yeah, you got it. Well, with the offensive line, the quarterback, obviously the halfback, you got to be able to see the game through the same set of eyes, and you got to be going in the same direction, and you got to be tied together. And it starts with communication, and it starts with protecting inside out and establishing a pocket, the depth of the pocket, the width of the pocket. And that extends, obviously, into the tight ends, receivers, when you're chipping and stuff like that. But it does. It really starts inside out, and it starts seeing it through the same lens. And we all got to be coordinated in that.
Yeah, and cohesiveness is a word that kept coming up. Cohesiveness, just guys being on the same page, protecting from the inside out. This is 2 years running now. We've seen where pressure right up the gut has been lethal at times, especially in the playoffs versus good defensive lines. So, I mean, some of that's is also rooted in the talent and technique of your interior offensive linemen, but it's also it all bleeds outwards, and guys being on the same page and moving like five fingers in a glove. Tight ends chip blocking when they're supposed to chip block. Tight ends taking the proper sets, all of those things. I feel better about Nick Calley actually being able to coach that, and him and hopefully Cole Popovich having, being lockstep in that, to the point where you're getting the absolute best out of whichever offensive linemen are out there this year. Now, we asked, do you have any type of idea what scheme you want to run? And I think this was Landry that asked this.
You have foundations and pieces that you want to, hang your hat on. Obviously, I think again, it's all about the players. There's different years. Every year is different. So we're going to do it around the strengths of our players. But I want to obviously first start off establishing the run game. What is that going to look like? Well, it's going to be based on, again, what we do best, and we'll pave the way with that moving forward. Yeah.
All right. I'll go back to Vic Fangio a little bit here. And you guys that have been subscribing to this channel for a while know that this was driving me insane this year when offenses didn't have an answer for all the cover two they're seeing, because it's the simplest and easiest thing in the world when you see cover two. You just run the piss out of the ball and you carve them up over the middle. It's so simple. It's so easy. You just run the ball. But you have these Madden warriors as offensive coordinators that want to be whiteboard geniuses that have no idea how to actually engineer a run game. I think they really genuinely think, and got away with it for a while. They were like, oh, okay, if we see cover two, we'll just run because it's easy. I'm like, nah, it's not that simple. You go up against a team like the Eagles, and they can stop the run with the 4 defensive linemen and a couple linebackers, it gets really hard to just, take what you want versus cover 2. And that's where, again, I think Calley's got a really good grounding in knowing that if it's game plan specific and this is a game where we're going to run a ton, then so be it. We saw that with the Patriots for years and years. Tom Brady didn't give a single damn if he handed the ball off 50 times in a football game. He was just concerned about getting the win. I think CJ's wired that way too. And I think CJ's going to appreciate kind of just maybe there's more of a blue collar feel to Nick Calley. There's just more of a football guy feel to Nick Calley, for whatever that's worth. I'm not trying to bash on Bobby Slowick or anything, but it feels a little bit different in these early stages. Let's see. What did I do? Oh, Landry asks about. This is a good question, and it's a little bit telling. Landry asks D'Amico about the process of hiring an offensive coordinator and how was it different this time with 2 years of head coaching experience to D'Amico?
This time, this process, it's a little easier. I think knowing what I was looking for and knowing what to look for after being a head coach for 2 years now and seeing how we operate here. And it was an easier process for me. The first time around, becoming a head coach, it was very hectic. Trying to get a new staff, trying to put everything together, a lot more hectic this time. Just being able to take my time, not rush anything, but to think through it, get the right guy, talk to a lot of different people, right, to get a lot of input in what we were doing. So felt much more comfortable this time around.
Yeah, and as he's saying that, I was in my mind, I was getting this image of, D'Amico first day on the job, having people come in and talk to him every 5 minutes, and he's fielding phone calls, and he's trying to not just hire an offensive coordinator, but an entire staff. And in one of the questions, Nick Calley was asked why he came here, and he talked about the people, he talked about D'Amico, the owners, everything. And I wonder if for Calley too, the difference between taking a job in New England last year where he was offered the offensive coordinator position, the Jets this year where he was reportedly the favorite, but he took himself out of it. Those were both situations where you had new head coaches coming in who are going to have to be establishing a whole bunch all at once. Calley comes in here, and at the very least, he's got a previous relationship with Caserio. He's got a previous relationship with Cole Popovich, who's somebody that if you're just joining us, man, Calley is all about the offensive line. He is. I know he was the pass game coordinator last year, but he is all about it starting up front and getting those things right. It just feels like he's more practical in a lot of ways. But for D'Amico, I don't want to say he acted like he regretted hiring Bobby or anything. Like he didn't betray any emotion like that. But it wasn't the right choice. And I think the flurry of activity, and a lot of you guys have brought this up during the year, was like that's something that a first-time head coach is going to have to get better at over time. He has to get better at hiring. That first time that he does it, he doesn't have the same network perhaps or the same dossier full of names that he can tap into. This time, him interviewing as many guys as he did and having the ability to do it this way, I'm glad that it worked out this way. Real quick, I just want to point this out because it caught my eye. The O-linemen are under contract. That means very, very little in the NFL, okay? Other than a couple of contracts where the dead money would be ridiculously big. Don't worry too much about contracts in the NFL or pro sports in general from the team side, unless it's baseball. Baseball's like the last remaining of the three major sports in Houston where contracts actually matter anymore. So, don't worry too much about that. Let's see. The last one. That might have been the last one. Let me see. There's one more.
How would someone like me describe the scheme?
Okay. How would someone like me describe the scheme? This is Landry asking this.
If we were talking about it.
It's going to be Houston's. It's going to be our scheme based on what we do, and I don't say that to throw any curveballs. It really is. I mean, my history dating back to when I first got into the National Football League under Coach Belichick is we were going to be a game plan team. If that meant we were going to run duo and gap schemes and run the ball 45 times to win the game, then that's what we were going to do. If we had to run more perimeter plays, wide zone, and we felt that was going to give us the edge, we were going to do that. It was all going to be based. We were going to ask our guys to do what they do well, but it was going to be based on what we do to help us win. And at the end of the day, we want want to win, and that's priority for us.
Yeah, the adaptability of the scheme and adapting to your players' strengths. I mean, Bobby came right out and admitted it in one of his press conferences, which I give him credit for. But in one of his press conferences this year, he said, we could have done a better job of adjusting to all this cover two that we were seeing. We should have adapted to the way defenses were facing us. And it's one of those moments where I want to credit him for the openness and honesty, and yet you're confirming every worst fear I had about you, and damn it. So hopefully we won't have any of those. Art Vandalay brings up something here. It was a question that I didn't put in here that D'Amico gave us a nugget of information in his answer about Cole Popovich, talking about one voice in that room. Sounds like there was a conflict going on between coaches in the O-line room. I don't want to read into that too much, except I did read into it. And hypothetically, it could very much be like that. I said earlier in this stream that there are a lot of times where the assistant position coach really is either better or has a better feel for how things should be coached up and schemed and everything, but his hands are tied for the most part. There's only so much you can do. Every single one of you have probably been in a position in your life where you were working with somebody that you didn't see eye to eye with. But if you're a subordinate and you don't feel like searching for a new job right away, which in football is really, really hard to do, as after you don't want to get fired too many times early in your career. You want to get fired when your head coach gets fired. You don't want to get fired when it's you getting fired. So there's only so much. It's a very hierarchical situation, and there's only so much you can do as an assistant coach. You can't jump on the table and scream about how people are idiots and all those things. And this is how did Landry get all those questions? He's going to get sent to timeout. As D'Amico was leaving the press conference, he said, "How'd Landry get 3 questions in a row?" It was cool. It was nice. It was just he was teasing him. He wasn't like genuinely snarky or anything. Yeah, hey, what the hell? Only 37 likes. Like me, love me. I just turned 50 yesterday. I'm having an existential dilemma trying to figure out what the hell's even going on in my life. I'm definitely halfway done. People my size don't live to over 100. Yeah. D'Amico was laughing about it. Good question here. Do you think he'll improve our tight end core and bring in new schemes with our guys? Okay, so new schemes is interesting because for one, I don't. And a lot of you guys were way more correct than I was on this. The insistence on wanting to be an outside zone run-based team. This is where I was stuck, is that that scheme is one that generally takes like a year to really bite because there's a lot of coaching that goes into it. It can look simple on the surface of it all, but you gotta coach the hell out of it. And I don't think they had the offensive line coach that was perfect for that scenario, and I don't think Bobby Slowick knew what he was doing either, because it looks really easy and simple on paper, but as Drew Hodgson, who you guys know comes on with me a lot, you can learn the concepts in a couple of hours, but you could spend your entire career really trying to figure it out, like how to block that scheme the way it's supposed to be blocked to make everything look identical and everything. And it can be kind of complicated, and they weren't good at coaching it, and they didn't veer off of it as quickly as they should. So the adaptability, I think, is really big. Shaq Mason would be a dead money hit, but they would have a net cap gain from it, if that's hopefully not overly complicated. They're in a good enough cap position. They're not in an awesome cap position, but they're in a good enough cap position that they can do whatever they feel they really need to do. I think Laramie Tunsil's the guy that a lot of people have questions about, and I'm feeling optimistic about Laramie Tunsil because he's always been an awesome pass protector. I felt like midway through the season, and it was when he was on record. He was on pace to shatter the record for most false starts in a season. He got the false starts cleaned up, but he also did show a genuine commitment to being a better run blocker, and that's not something that happens overnight. So I'm staying cautiously optimistic about him being a more complete football player this year. I've always felt like he has the physical ability to be a genuine all-pro, but the problem was he was only all-pro as a pass protector, not the complete deal like a Trent Williams or some of those guys out there. So I'm optimistic about it for now, and we'll see about that. Let's see. What did you think of? Oh, and as far as the question about the tight ends, yes, I think he'll get a lot. Thick LFG. I think he'll get a lot. I think he'll get a lot more out of the tight ends. If you close your eyes, Nick sounds like McVay. It's a little bit less nasally, right? A little bit less. He doesn't say McVay, and I'm not insulting him, but I can't think of a better word. He sounds a little pipsqueaky, right? Like he almost had to become a genius because otherwise he wasn't going to get away with that voice. I feel like Calley's got a little bit more of the nasal sound that you get up from where I was born in that whole region around Ohio and upstate New York and everything. I've tried to diaphragm my way out of it as much as possible, but it's still there. It's got a nice baritone voice, but nasally. It's beautiful. 57? No, I'm 50. I'm not 57. You son of a bitch. You bastard. I wonder if that's what Joe Mixon was alluding to, or is there more? I don't know what he was alluding to. I must have missed some social media drama. Yeah, the culture change. I think we're good. I feel good. I feel good. I feel really good right this moment. I think we're going to see a different version of C.J. Stroud this year. Just that one quick note to leave you with. Pat Mahomes had the second worst game of his career in the Super Bowl, partly because he was pressured 37% of the time, mostly because he was pressured 37% of the time. And Travis Kelce, he moved the way I feel. And Vic Fangio did a really good job of limiting Travis Kelce as well. But I think that hold on a second. So CJ's average pressure rate was that same. It was 37% or 38% all year long. I mean, that's the kind of pressure CJ was under this year. Whether you're Pat Mahomes or CJ Stroud or anybody else, it's really hard to play quality football and be a good quarterback under those circumstances. So we're going to see a different version of CJ Stroud if they just do things, as Nick hammered a couple times in this press conference, the fundamentals. Just being fundamentally sound takes care of a lot. And a lot of the offensive linemen that you and I and the entire world are really skeptical of right now, at least a couple of those guys are going to look a lot better next year. Yeah, I think there will be a couple personnel changes probably. I put it at a 1.5 in the over-under in terms of new starting guys. It all depends. If Titus Howard plays left guard, then I think you got Blake Fisher out at right tackle, and you'll have a new right guard. I think that's the best move. I think it's time for Shaq Mason to head out to pasture. And both those young centers, I'm optimistic about if they are more of an inside zone and a duo and power type of run scheme. I could feel good about that as long as the fundamentals are there, because those guys were just fundamentally flawed this year. And maybe Shaq Mason is a guy that surprises us too. But I feel a lot better about it. So thank you. Please hit the like button, subscribe, all of that. I'm Seth Payne. I played for the Texans a long, long time ago, and now I do sports radio on Sports Radio 610 in Houston. And we're going to spring training next week. I think I'm leaving next Saturday. So look for Baseball Seth and Baseball Pendergast along with Baseball Spo. And thanks to BetUS for sponsoring the video.